outside communication that might influence their ability to hear all sides on an item on the agenda, so they might come to a fair decision. And there are none. So unfinished business. Rezone 1729 South Princeton Street. Director Hawkins.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Planning Commissioners, Ryan Harkins, Community Development Director. This is a request to change zoning from C3 General Commercial to R3 High Density Residential. The recommendation from staff is the rezoning be approved based on the findings listed in the staff report. To give additional background, this is a 5.9 acre parcel. This is located along South Princeton, 1.5 miles from I-35. It's roughly at the corner of 17th and Princeton. Princeton is wider at this point than farther south as you head back toward the main arterial. It's an undeveloped parcel. City Planning Commission has seen this area before with the idea of self-storage in the past, but the R3 is a move that acts more as a buffer between the commercial properties to the west. And then
excuse me, is it possible to share the screen so I can see it too?
We'll see
Can you
what we
share
can
your
do.
there? Thank you.
So this is surrounded by existing development and multiple residential zoning districts. Area north is R3. Area south and northeast is zoned R1, which is the low density residential. They are looking at developing multiple family at this location. The future land use plan does indicate a low density residential. This is the overall aerial of the site. You can see essentially the one part of 17th and Princeton. You can see it's wider there as it goes farther south and then narrows to single family residential homes. There's a gas line that runs essentially across the southern half of the property from northeast to southwest. This is the street view looking into the property from 17th and Princeton. So this would be essentially behind what was Daylight and will be again Daylight Donuts. And then this is looking north on Princeton toward the property. You can see where it curves there by Daylight Donuts and the residential single-family structures on the right. One of the discussions previously when this was looked at by Planning Commission was concern about traffic and the street width of Princeton as it goes up to 17th, and the concerns of individuals still trying to drive through and cut through the development to catch other streets and avoid stoplights. It was asked if 17th could be widened. Staff took this zoning request back to the Development Review Committee and placed a CIP project into consideration to do a cul-de-sac at the end. But again, that's a placeholder within the CIP, so that can be going as it goes from concept into design, redone and become more of a street widening, particularly to give access or better control and better access to vehicles coming on Princeton, whether it be delivery trucks or vehicles on the street. It is important to note, and it was mentioned last time with Planning Commission, going south traffic is blocked. I have seen one, unfortunately a law enforcement vehicle, try and go around the barricades this week. Was not alone when I observed that, so I have one other witness that can verify that happened, which was rather unfortunate. But generally speaking, traffic is constrained from going south and exiting off Princeton. So the traffic flow would be more to the north. So that gives emergency vehicles and deliveries still the ability to come into this site as well as service the properties here on the south end of Princeton. They could, by and large, use 17th and Princeton to get back to Maine and then circulate out into the rest of the community. Because it's a concept in the CIP and it's a placeholder project, there's still plenty of time and to discuss and tweak that project to be more of a street widening and less of a cul-de-sac type of design. That would give the potential to do the street widening to address traffic issues, but also minimize any potential impact of vehicles trying to come up north that might access the development site. We could also work in a right turn only lane from Princeton to access out that might be a little bit better. But again, those are concepts that we can work through as we get farther into design and out of the concept stage. There was another question at Planning Commission last time about sanitary sewer access. You'll see the sanitary sewer on the site is primarily accessed going north. That's what we envision the site really doing for the most part, and not trying to run lines to the south to access those sewer mains across 2 or 3 properties. That's been verified with our utilities director, and that's how they envision things. We did sit down with the applicant's engineer from the last planning commission till now to start the discussion about infrastructure design and site planning, so they know those constraints as well. This was one of the initial concept that the applicant had looked at. You'll notice the duplexes on the south end hugging the easement, but out of that gas easement, 4 8-unit apartments and then a 12-unit building, so 54 units total. There would be an access onto Cedar and then the private drive that would connect to Princeton and essentially Princeton and 17th. They still have, again, this is a conceptual image. It is not an actual site plan, so that still has to be sent to the city for review. And again, this is looking farther north, back up toward the development site. Staff feels that the request is compliant with the future land use plan. We feel the multifamily at this site acts as a buffer and is a good transition piece. There's multifamily to the north already, and this can help open up a number of housing opportunities in the community. The site would have access to 17th and Main. It would give them a chance to get back to Main Street easily. It would be a good infill housing project, which is encouraged in the comprehensive plan. Because of these findings, staff is recommending you continue the public hearing and ultimately recommend approval of the rezoning request. In terms of alternatives, however, aside from recommending approval, you can recommend denial, or you can defer the item if you feel there's still additional discussion that needs to be had with this item. With that said, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So what I am hearing is that there's nothing to say that Princeton can't be altered, changed, something in order to better accommodate additional traffic. There's no barrier there that says that cannot be done.
No, and with the city owning some of the land on what would be the west side of that street, the city would control the right-of-way acquisition there, so we already have the space to do that. The right-of-way on the east side of that image, when you were looking north, right-of-way line gets right up to the property line there, so there's not too much room there, but we have room on the other side of the street to maneuver and work to widen. We may need to look at one essentially box culvert being widened or replaced, and then some drainage work as far as grading to help with water sitting on the road even in a low storm event. But those are all things that can be done as part of the design.
Thank you.
I'm happy to hear about the possibility of widening Princeton Street and the Princeton Street improvements as not just saying we're going to put a cul-de-sac in and close it off. I did some measuring, and I went over to Hidden Lakes and I measured a cul-de-sac over there, and it's 99 feet across the diameter of the cul-de-sac from back of curb to back of curb. If you go on Princeton Street to measure where you can get 99 feet, that puts the cul-de-sac at about my south property line, which leaves at least 4 driveways, possibly 5, depending upon the exact location as to where the cul-de-sac would be. And to even cram it that far south, like I said, you got 4, maybe 5 driveways that are still gonna be south of the cul-de-sac to deal with. Plus, there's gonna have to be a retaining wall built up on the Princeton Circle to hold that bank in, and then a guardrail put up there. So, and then it's, the cul-de-sac on its own does not solve the issue of the width of Princeton Street. And it does not solve the issue of larger delivery trucks, school buses and that kind of thing, being able to run down through there, because when this was first presented at Hidden Lake, on the Hidden Lakes, we had 3 trash services in town. We now have, I seen another one today, we now have 5 trash services in town. And anybody that runs a route truck in this area knows you enter that street from the south, you exit to the north. They all know that. So, to me, the cul-de-sac isn't gonna solve it, but as Director Harkins stated, it sounds like they're very open to the possibility of widening it. That's gonna solve the traffic issues, it's gonna solve the truck issues going in and out down there, and I'm happy to see that.
And as a point of
Happy to hear that.
information, just to pick up off of Commissioner Harris's comments, when DRC discussed this, the cul-de-sac was the first thing mentioned is, if it's a traffic, we can close it. To do a cul-de-sac, you would have to essentially bust part of the curb to have some kind of access for those 4 houses south of it. And it still doesn't, because the cul-de-sac with closing the street fully is the only way to have enough radius to turn a fire truck or any other vehicle, large vehicle around. When I took this picture, I watched multiple trucks pull in and out of Commissioner Harris's property. I'm assuming his employees in their work vehicles. But anything pulling even a small trailer is going to have a tough time unless they're pulling into a property and having done a very good job pulling in and backing out, making that type of turn around without a big cul-de-sac or some other way. So again, that's where the right turn out could be an option. Again, that's a design issue we would get to later once we're in that phase. But we have placed a street project in the CIP to help accommodate some of those ongoing issues. Some were there before Hidden Lakes, some are there still after Hidden Lakes. So staff is trying to figure out the best way to deal with what's been there as one of multiple legacy issues in places like this in the community. This is kind of our best foot forward as far as what we think we can do. Again, we're gonna have to design really well, but that right turn out could potentially be between those first couple of light poles that you see in that image there. It's not necessarily something we have to do, but it's something we can look at as well, especially with that embankment being as steep as it is. Again, that's where Commissioner Harris is talking about the idea of a retaining wall and a guardrail, because somebody going below the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, especially if you think ice and snow, will go over that embankment. If they drive like some of my former neighbors in Oklahoma City do in ice and snow, they will go over, or even rain. So just, those are some of the design considerations we've tried to take into account at staff level, and we'll continue those discussions again as we go through moving the CIP item from concept to design, but that's what we've done so far. In terms of the rest of the site, most of it will be up to the applicant and their design team. And so after that initial discussion, I feel pretty confident that they can work through most of the design issues with the infrastructure, even if we have to do some speed bumps or things like that. It can be a maintenance issue for sure, but again, I think most issues we can work through on the site itself.
One other thing I'd like to mention too, on the cul-de-sac, that type of a cul-de-sac, especially with the retaining wall having to be built, you're looking at $300,000 plus just to build the cul-de-sac. To do a minor street widening project on Princeton Street for the full length from 17th up to 19th, you're looking at about half that, if not less. So dollar for dollar, that, like I said, I'm glad to see that the city's possibly considering that as opposed to the cul-de-sac, because dollar for dollar, it makes way more sense.
So,
And-
when you say that the city's considering that, doesn't that, I mean, as far as, you've mentioned it to people, but that has to go through a process of approvals to actually do
Sure.
something to the
I
street,
mean, we
correct?
still have to have the CIP approved and
Yeah.
that be a project on it, but we have placed that in the hopper to be in the CIP.
So, the issue that we had in our last discussion was a density issue. And it seems like this is like, with the street in front of the project, it's like, it seems like it's one of the worst locations for this with that street. I guess, I'm kinda thinking maybe we're putting the cart before the horse here, if we're trying to change the density. And also, what could we do at this stage to maybe have it in a construction agreement where the developer would have some of the cost in the street improvement?
Well, they're not necessarily looking at platting the property as a multifamily development. So that would just be a development agreement we would have to try and ask for as part of the approval process, since we don't have impact fees on the books to say you will do this as part of it. And there's not necessarily a trigger for an traffic impact study that would say you need to do these things to help deal with the impact of your development. Those are certainly things we can look at adding into code if you want. But again, since it's not there, your ability to say we would like these things as more of a, we strongly suggest type of in our advice and consent process. Ultimately, that's a condition we would have to take up with the governing body. So the city commission would have to look at that. It's certainly something we can bring to them that says planning commission would like to strongly recommend as part of the approval of this, that if you do grant the request, that you ask them to help pay for part of the street widening.
I got a question that might help you with that, Bill, if I may ask the developer a question.
Do you want to wait to open the public hearing, or till you're done with me and then let them talk?
May I ask, I thought the public hearing on this was now closed.
Okay,
Didn't we close the public hearing officially in our last
We-
meeting? So there is no
yeah.
longer a public hearing?
So do you want to wait till you're done with me and then have them come up?
well, you may have some input afterwards.
Okay.
So, I mean, and it's just a quick question. Could I get you to put the developer site plan back up there?
Sure. That's their concept plan.
Your concept plan. Could developer step up to the podium, please? Okay, name?
Justin Meechan.
Okay. One of the concerns at the last meeting, and obviously, was what Commissioner Colley said about the high density and the traffic.
Uh-huh.
And then we also discussed people using your development to dodge or using Princeton Street and your development to dodge the stoplights at 17th and Main and 15th and Main.
Right.
On your site plan right here, between, well, you don't have the buildings numbered, but were those two parking lots joined together?
Yes, they are.
Would you, as a developer, consider not making that through, in other words, closing that off and making that a green area?
Absolutely,
To
yeah,
where-
I had actually
Where they
mentioned that.
couldn't come through there?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that would alleviate some of the concerns on the traffic and using it for a racetrack to get around those two stoplights.
Sure, I'd absolutely be open to that, yeah.
I mean, that's at least part of a simple solution.
And I'm sure that's something that would have to go through city approval too, so. And it was suggested to me that I do a through street through there. I was actually gonna try and just do it like a cul-de-sac coming off of Cedar Street so that we didn't have any additional traffic going down Princeton, but it was mentioned that we should have a through street going from Princeton to Cedar, so that's how that came to be on the concept drawing.
So the city suggested that being through there, so.
Yes, they
Dogs
wanted 2
are-
points of access for emergency vehicles and stuff like that, so. It's,
Well, I can see the logic in that also,
uh-huh.
so.
And yeah, and I'm open to whatever's gonna work best for everybody involved.
What, okay, I know like on Hidden Lakes, and this is a question more for Director Harkins. I know on Hidden Lakes, there was a requirement for anything over so many units had to have 2 points of access. If the developer was to cut that off right there to where you couldn't go through, is that still in compliance with 1 point of access to each set of buildings? Or does that put it out of compliance?
I don't think fire would specifically be open to that, just so they have because it would be harder to bring a truck in and get it out. They'd have to come in off Cedar and then back the truck out, potentially.
Okay. Okay, fair enough.
But that could be an area where you concentrate, for example, speed bumps, and not focus them throughout the drive or the driving area. So you could do the private drive off of Princeton and then with one, and then focus most of them where it goes north between the first set of larger apartment buildings. So you could have a couple of there and then leave the rest of the parking area open so that it's not as difficult to traverse if you're living there.
Okay.
That's one suggestion just off the top.
So today we're just getting us back full circle. We're basically just looking at the rezoning today. We're not looking at the plat maps. We're not looking at site plans. We're not, right, this is all we're being asked. Should we do that, will we engage with this property again at some point in the future? Will there be another opportunity for us to look at it, or does it just continue on through the planning process?
Well, from here, the rezoning request would go to City Commission. Once their design team has a site plan and improvement plans for the site, we would look at them again. We can certainly show you the site plan at that point, but the desire at staff level is to scrub that as hard as we can so that we feel like, in a way that we feel like makes it work with all of the, and tries to balance all of these concerns, before we would bring it forward. That way it's as complete as possible before you see it or
Okay.
anybody else.
My concern, even in talking with the developer right now, is not to try to lock in anything because it's
Right.
so early in the planning stage. I feel like I just want to make sure we're not going off into a
Sure.
tangent that we don't need to be going
Correct.
into today.
And that's true. And as a point of information, I would point out, code says that your involvement in site plan review is only when an applicant appeals the decision of the DRC, technically. So bringing site plans to you is a courtesy that staff does. And we're happy to do that to try and give you, additional chances to give input, but the way code is written, that is the process on that specifically.
So basically what he's saying is, this is the only opportunity for the public and the commission to actually have a say in what can be done with that property.
Not quite. I said we would bring it back as a courtesy on the site plan, and I meant that. We can, and we will. That way, in case there is something we think staff missed, we can certainly take it back to them. But in terms of just, I just want to make it clear, that is a courtesy. That is not it's not a decision that you guys normally get to make the way the code is written. And I just want to clarify that. But we're happy to bring it back, but I want to make sure DRC has done as thorough a job as possible, making sure that site plan is sufficient. That way, when you guys see it, it's, oh, yeah, this makes sense and you heard us.
Mr. Meachin, did you have something to add?
I do. I was thinking, I may be able to put a gate up on the entrance to control the traffic coming through there as well, like an electronic gate, and only the people that have access to the buildings will be able to access the gate.
Similar to a gated community?
Yes. That's a good idea. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Good idea.
I mean,
Can I ask where Hidden Lake is? Where the development Hidden Lake is?
Hidden Lakes, Commissioner Cohen is to the south, essentially
Okay,
Two
just
blocks.
parallel, 2 blocks, parallel with Price Chopper.
okay,
So it would be, if you look at Price Chopper on an aerial and then just go to the east, it would be in that area, just across the
okay.
main arterial.
Any more discussion? Jack?
Nope. Do you have something to say?
Nope.
Nope.
Didn't want to interrupt. I'd like to see this, I'd like to be able to make this work for the developer, because I do agree that I think this is a good use for this. It adjoins Hidden Meadows, which is high density. With the cooperation that we're getting from the Community Development Department now, and I don't mean to sound negative here, but with the cooperation we're getting now versus what we've had in the past, I feel a whole bunch better about moving forward with this in good faith, that they're gonna follow through with what they say.
I would respond to that with, regardless, I think, going forward of who the director is, I think the staff is in a position now where they feel like they can push forward and lead that charge no matter what.
You can't quit.
In the unfortunate event that something unfortunate would happen to me, is more of the context I thought of. Having said that, it's more of the context of, I think in the last couple of months, we've done enough things internally. I feel like the staff has seen some things and we've talked through different things. I feel like they're empowered enough to drive forward with these directions and these discussions, and I think they're gonna work because they want to do that, and I saw that very early. So I will tell you, we've taken the gloves off the staff a little bit, so they're gonna fight for some of these things. So they're listening, and I think you're gonna see where you said something show up later and be like, they heard me and they did something with it. So yeah, we're there.
That's good to hear. So we have a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion. I move to approve the rezone from C3 General Commercial District to R3 High Density Residential District at 1729 South Princeton Street.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Vice Chair Crowley,
Yes.
Member Harris,
Yes.
Member Cohen,
Yes,
Chair Lantis, Member Maxwell,
Yes.
Member Kane, Member Stresnick Dean.
Yes.
Motion passes. Okay. Any new business?
Mr. Vice Chair, I would just say, as a point of note, The Community Development Department on the 17th of March is hosting, in conjunction with George Butler Associates, who does a lot of our plan review, a workshop on the International Existing Building Code. It's an informative workshop. It's just partial day, not a full day. It'll be here at City Hall. If people are builders or property owners, contractors are interested, please just call the department general number and or email us, and we will get you on the list of attendees.
You've been notified.
What's the date for that again?
That is March 17th. So happy St. Patrick's Day. We're going to host you for a workshop.
You have to talk like that the whole time, please.
That's a no. I don't have that much in me, Dick. I will say also, I've been impressed with the staff that I've seen so far, but there is one additional staff member that will be starting this month on the 23rd. Our vacant planner spot, Zach, who some of you met, had left in the spring, summer months. His spot has been filled with a gentleman coming from Wyoming. He's no stranger to Kansas, however. He has a degree from K-State. He's from the Topeka area, has family in the KC area, and has a couple years of experience working in Wyoming. So, and understands rural areas, small towns, growing towns, and college communities. So I'm excited about that. We'll be at full strength at that point. So that'll be exciting. Staff is working on revising a number of processes relating to the building and plan review side to make that smoother. Our goal is to be done and out the door with a permit after the second review, and not drag to 6, 7, or 8. Yes. 2. Now, if you change them as an applicant, that's on you, and we may take a third time, but our goal is to be done. So that's been a lot of internal discussions. For example, on the residential side, clearing up more of a checklist type, and we will be making revisions to our building permit application and starting to use that revised form on April 1st. No, really, it's not an April Fool's joke. We'll go live with it. And hopefully getting additional information clears things up for us and our reviewers. We're also looking at comments as they come in from our third-party reviewers and trying to make sure they are clear before we send them to an applicant. So if you can't explain it to us, you get it back as a reviewer and you get to do it again. So hopefully those types of things will help in the process as well. Other than that, we continue to be involved in economic development efforts and a number of other projects going forward. Confluence, who's a consultant out of Kansas City, will be involved in discussions with the development community, taking input on how we can do better on and ways to make the planning process better, as well as helping to finish off the comprehensive plan and get that wrapped up. And then they'll be looking at some zoning changes. So if there's ideas that you have, please feel free to share them with us as staff. We've talked a lot about trying to make the residential zoning districts a little bit more open and create more opportunities and do some other things on the residential side, as well as maybe look at some other pieces of the code with regard to the subdivision regs and make that go smoother as well. Having said all that, it's not more of so much new business as it is just some general announcements. We just want to make sure you know.
Well, as a contractor, I would say those are some great announcements.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Commissioner comments?
Yes.
John have a comment to make? He said yes, didn't he?
John?
Oh, no, I don't have a comment to make. I misunderstood what you were asking.
I didn't want to interrupt, John. I just want to say it's a breath of fresh air to get the presentations with all of the facts being presented the way they're being presented and not have to wonder. We're getting the full scope, I believe, in a positive manner. And as a commissioner and a citizen, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it. The announcements. Next planning commission meeting will be held March 26th at noon, and April 8th at 7 p.m.
Actually, as a point of information, Mr. Chairman, we have no agenda items for the 26th, so we likely will cancel that meeting.
Okay? Okay, you have a motion to adjourn?
So
So-
moved.
I'll
Second. Third?